Hi everyone, welcome or welcome back to Misinformation in Science and Society. Here to listen, not to judge. I'm Annie, and today with us we have Min Kyriannis, who is a CEO and focuses on security and technology.
Hello.
Hi, how are you?
Hi, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good, very good.
Hey, so um, let's just get started. I basically started this project because I noticed a lot of like misinformation especially during COVID and like on social media. So could you please like introduce yourself and kind of like what you do?
Sure, of course. And then I'm probably going to ask a little bit about yourself too,
Sure.
how you're doing this as well.
Hmm.
My name is Min Kyriannis. I am actually CEO and founder of a company called Amyna Systems, tech company in the industry. I also wear other hats. I sit on a board for Women International Security as well as other STEAM programs, the Curious Minds Die Foundation. So I'm geared towards education and also many, I would say diversity, equity, inclusion, but also the fact that knowing, coming from an immigrant family and seeing how things are very different for us and also being of Asian descent, I try to be very careful and cognizant of things like this. So thank you for having me. And I hope you can make a little introduction about yourself as well.
Sure, yeah. I'm a rising high school junior in Illinois. Um, yeah, I live in like the northern suburbs. And I don't know, in the future, I'm interested in like STEM. I'm thinking of going to something related to like biology.
Sweet.
Um, so yeah.
That's awesome. So, if you don't mind me asking, what made you look at this, I would say disinformation or um, misinformation as a science project?
Oh yeah, it's like just like my personal project. I think I read like a news article
Hmm.
one day that mentioned it, and then I thought about like how I kind of like especially like on social media I like see a lot of that as well. So
Okay,
I thought um I could try to talk with people from like a lot of different like fields and backgrounds about this to see like the misinformation in different like fields and like stuff like that. And so yeah.
that's awesome. No, thank you. I've appreciate you sending emails. And the next question I'm going to ask you, and I hope you don't mind, is how did you come upon my email address and sending me a note?
Yeah, I believe um I believe I found like your the company that you founded, and then I thought that was like somewhat related and like because it's like about like security and like stuff like that, and then so I thought I'd just like reach out.
That's very nice. Thank you. No, I ask a lot of these questions because I like to know how you came upon
Mm-hmm.
reaching out, and that always piques my interest.
Yeah, of course. I understand that.
Thank you.
Yeah. I'm curious, why did you like choose this career like initially?
So I have a very eclectic background. I didn't choose this career in the beginning, actually. I was always very technical. So I've always had a very technical background, but boredom got to me. So I did resign at one point in my life, career choice, and actually was trained professionally as a chef.
Mm-hmm.
I did modeling. So I have a very eclectic background. And then because of my, people knew I had a technical background, security and technology fell back on my lap again and haven't left it since. And I think the combination of both tech and security was really what drove my interest even more because I love security and I love crime. I love stuff like that. And so that's why I'm in this field as I am right now.
Yeah. So what's like your favorite part of like doing what you do kind of?
Um, well, I wear a lot of different hats, so I always continuously like to be kept busy. But I
Mm-hmm.
think what's most important for me is also learning. You don't stop learning.
Mm-hmm.
You're constantly wondering what's out there. And for an individual like you, if you're in STEM, the question is always why and how do I learn? How do I get more information? What am I missing? So I think I really love about this is the fact that they're so expansive and that you're able to have many tentacles in various different areas as your interest grows and it's
Mm-hmm.
all interrelated to each other.
Yeah. I think that's very nice. So, would well, yeah, so why do you think truth is like so important, and like why do you think misinformation is like such a huge issue like right now?
So it's a very open-ended question that you have there, right? Truth is important because if you're going to go into STEAM, you talk about science and facts and having a hypothesis and proving it with a fact down a line, so that way you can draw a conclusion, which I think is phenomenal. But then there's another aspect of it, whether it's cultural, whether it's gender related, whether it's politically related. There's a lot of I would say, unfalse data, untruthful data that are spread amongst to either ruin a person's reputation or to lead, I would say, the general public in a certain direction.
Mhm.
So there's a lot of different ways that are looking at it. So one of the things that have been talked about is how gender plays a role and how misinformation is guided on how positions of politicians are, or women politicians, how it goes out there to, cause conflict within a person's reputation. And what's interesting about that is that it's a lot of thought. There's lots of lies that's around it, and then you start putting fear into people or guides, giving them a simple sense of maybe I'm wrong about this individual and I have to go a certain way. So if you look in politics, especially during the information and the news that's out there, you have to really learn how to discern that information, and it's very hard
Mhm.
because you have a lot of different stances that are provided. I try to be as neutral as possible and try to draw the facts out, but it's very, very hard, especially when we have the media at the tip of our fingertips, especially with us. Everybody's trying to get the news first, right?
Mhm.
So it's very hard to control that nowadays. And I'm not sure how I would advise people to do that. This is why I feel for folks, it's very important to learn as much as you can and then to weed out fact from fiction.
Mhm. Yeah, for sure. Um,
Let
so
me ask you this question. Have you ever been in a position where you were fighting for, a rumor that was affecting you moving forward?
um probably maybe like stereotypes sometimes.
Mhm. Yep.
Um and like it's I guess not really like fighting, but like it's kind of just kind of like came up and like we were like kind of it, but yeah, kind of fighting I guess for that. It's just like stereotype for like gender and like so how that. So
Can you can you go into a little bit about it? I'd be curious to hear about your experiences in it.
yeah, uh I like learned about like the word because I moved here like 3 years ago from
Oh,
Beijing. Um
oh, okay.
Yeah, so I learned the word stereotype the first time like in eighth grade. At lunch we had like a conversation like it kind of just came out. It was like a really short conversation, but like they were like talking about like stereotypes for like Asian. It was like an Asian friend. And then and then sorry, and then I guess also for like women in STEM, that's a thing. Um, so yeah, I guess that's like my first experience with like the word stereotype, and that's where I learned it. And so
Yeah,
yeah.
I'm gonna say this though. Since you came from Beijing 3 years ago, your English is phenomenal. I think I speak Chinese fluently too.
Oh,
So, so I have two girls too who are learning both Chinese and they're mixed in Greek.
fun.
So for me, it's a very interesting thing because the reason I'm asking you this is because you brought up a topic where we have talked about quite a bit at Women in International Security.
Mhm.
Disinformation is a big, big tool that's utilized by quite a bit of people and governments to get to a certain advantage. And then growing up as an Asian, I was always told that as a stereotype, a woman's place is in the kitchen or with a family and taking care of kids.
Yeah.
Obviously, that's not true because I kind of broke away from that. So I'd be curious. Yeah. So since you immigrated from China from Beijing 3 years ago, did you go to an international school or did you want to go to the school locally?
So from first to fifth grade, I went to like a public Chinese like elementary school.
Mm-hmm.
And then for
国
six, huh?
国小 as they
Oh,
call it 小学
yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah yeah mhm.
And then, yeah, I lived like in Chaoyang too. I don't know if you know.
Oh okay
Yeah, and then
okay
for sixth and seventh grade, to like kind of transition, I guess, my parents like, I like transferred to an international school. That's like, I guess, where I learned most of my English somewhat. Um, and it was honestly really nice because like the transition to like here made it like that made it like really easy, like
hmm
because those schools try to like mirror these schools. So yeah, and then I went to like a small junior high for eighth grade, and now I'm in high school. So
that's great that's and so I assume that doing these type of little projects is helping you learn. Is this what it's for?
learn.
To learn more about what your interests are, or is this to learn, understand more about the stereotypes that have been conveyed or exuded onto us?
Um, I mean, it's kind of my like I guess like main goal for this is to learn like about like a lot of different like fields and the misinformation in like they're like in each field, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, but like I like explore a lot of like different stuff with like each person I talk with. So like it's really fun and um yeah, like with each interview is like different and we talk about misinformation, but like also like some other stuff like this we were talking about like equality and like stereotypes and stuff like that. So it's really fun. I yeah.
No, that's great to listen. That's actually very great to hear from someone so young as you. And I think I think I'm trying to kind of understand how your mind works in a way
Uh,
because and I love to hear more actually from you in terms of why you started this project. Like, why did you come about and say, let's, interview different people
mhm.
um, to do this and start this project and record it, obviously, because that's the first thing you did. I noticed when we logged on is it's already set on record without an introduction. So, but what was in your mind when you first started this project to kind of get you going?
Yeah, like I mean, I like watch a lot of YouTube, I guess.
Hmm
And then so I thought like the best way to like learn about each field and people in those fields is to like actually talk with them. I also learned from like some like networking tips from my like parents and stuff that like I should like talk with people.
You
Uh,
should.
and then so like I kind of just thought like and with like Zoom it's so convenient and I just thought like that will be really effective and like fun too um and record it like I think for me I personally I think this channel like my channel is like is mainly for my target audience I guess will be like teens to like kind of spread what I learned from these interviews.
Hmm
That's why I have them like recorded and like posted. Um, and yeah, so
No, that's great. If is it okay if I ask what your parents do?
oh yeah. So my dad is a lawyer.
Okay.
And my mom she like co-founded like a company in like 2008, I
Mhm.
think. And but she also like is like a certified like accountant and stuff like that.
That's great. So you're learning quite a bit from your parents to be very entrepreneurial and also do a lot of things on your own then.
For sure, yeah, yeah. Like from
That's
since I was really young.
that's really, really good. So you talk about your target audience for teens.
Hmm.
What have you learned so far and what do you expect them to learn about all this once you push the message out?
Um, I mean, like,
Sorry, I feel like the interview went reversed.
you're good. Um, I mean, like, first, like, at the end of each interview, I like ask the person like what advice they have
hmm
for people, especially like teens. So either about like information and misinformation or just like in general.
hmm
So I think that will be like really helpful and like just direct. Um, but also I guess I don't know, because I was curious about this. So, and it's like I feel like misinformation is a huge issue like right now.
Mhm.
So if someone else is also interested and thinks it's a problem, then they can just, you know.
Well, actually, one of the things that you laid out is that there hasn't been much studies done. It's just recently that many of the think tanks are starting to look at it. And the groups that I've worked with are actually looking at it and scrutinizing it a little more now as to how there's a political impact. And it's not just politics, it's also workforce, right?
Mhm.
Um, I'm not sure how much studies you have done, and maybe you can educate me on that side in school, is that one of the things that I've spoken to a lot of in younger, well, a little older than you, I would say probably in college at that point, is the fact that when they were going to school, they were always advised by counselors that
Mhm.
maybe a field in STEAM or something that is more quote unquote male dominated is
Uh-huh.
not a good fit for them. Like I went into computer science.
Mhm.
And I was one point in time, and actually an advisor had said to me, he's like, maybe it's not a great field for you. And
Mhm.
you can see right off why. It was because of the gender I was, not because of my intelligence or if I was capable of doing it. Frankly, I don't like programming. I learned that very quickly. I hated programming, doing it and breaking through computers.
Mhm.
But it's really there is a very subconscious, I would say, old school mentality about gender and how it plays into the role of society nowadays. And it could be very cultural too, right? If you look in China, where you're from, you probably can advise me if it's true or not. And I've just observed it is that women, are in a very different position than men, mostly because women are deemed quote unquote housewives and that their position is to take care of the family. Even though if they have a professional job, they still have a different role. They still have to go home and take care of the family.
Yeah.
Right. There's an expectation. And one of the things that we tried to do, or I tried to do at one point in time, was actually talk about Asian diversity and equity and inclusion, because one, there's a cultural mindset that is still embedded in us that I don't think we have broken out of. And it's more generational because of the multi-generational families that are always living with us, which I'm sure you're aware of. So I think there's a lot of truth to the misinformation and disinformation
Mhm.
that happens. And I think, generations like you will probably be able to evolve that better as that old mindset goes away. So this is much appreciated in that respect. Because I have two young daughters, very young, much younger than you are,
Yeah.
which I feel like we're teaching them very differently is before you think, ask questions, get
Mhm.
the facts first. Don't ever judge without getting those facts.
Mhm. Yeah, I actually did like a coding camp a few weeks ago.
Right.
Um, and it's like specifically for like it's called Code with Classie, and
Hmm.
yeah, it's specifically for like people that are like not like because usually they're like guys that do it, so it's like
Hmm.
not, and for like minorities, I guess, in computer science, and like we had like discussions about like culture in tech, and
Hmm.
um and our like IA's instructor assistants, they're like college students. They talked about like how like in their classes like they're like one of the only like three girls or something like that,
Yep.
and um I think. I think they said when it gets to college, it's like a little better. Like some of the high schoolers in my classes, they said like they were like the only person in their computer science class or like AP computer science.
Yeah.
So like because I'm not really doing computer science,
Hmm.
but because I want to do like biology, but like that was like really surprising. Not like I guess really surprising, but like I knew like it was like very like male dominated, but I didn't know it was like that bad. So that was definitely great to, like that.
Don't feel bad, by the way. It was the norm for me too in computer science. I think I was one of, because I'm thinking about my class right now back in my college days. I
Mhm.
was a class of about 100 students, and I was think two or three women. I was one of them out of 100 kids programming.
Oh my God.
Um, assembly, if I remember the language correctly. And it was painful
Mhm.
because, a lot of girls in my time would be doing marketing and business, right?
Mhm.
And I went to a science program, but
Yeah.
but it's always been my interest, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. I used to be a gamer too, And I still remember in college, I was looking at Dungeons and Dragons.
Mm,
One of the guys in the club said to me, he's like, you shouldn't be part of this group. And I looked at the guy with the beard. I was like, what the F are you talking about? I enjoy gaming.
yeah.
And but this is, this is a typical mindset. And it's not, it's lack of education, really. At
Mhm,
the end of it, it's lack of education. But just curious though, you said you love biology, you love STEAM.
mhm.
What are you interested in that? Is it for science, medical sciences? Is it for, biotechnology? Like, what are you looking at?
So my favorite like STEM, like STEAM subject is actually math. That's like my
Hmm.
best subject, but I'm thinking of going to like medicine like in the future. So so like biology, I guess like a little bit of chemistry, like
Okay,
that's what I'm gonna like focus on, but like my favorite would definitely be math. And it yeah, and it's like I'm like that's like my best subject. Um I'm taking I like took a little bit like biologist is like science, right? Like in junior high and like elementary school.
hmm,
But I'm taking my first year of like biology uh
okay,
next or this like upcoming year.
hmm,
So I'm like really excited to like learn like a lot about biology this year. Um so yeah, just like to make sure I'm like interested in it and so that. But
that's great. No, so I sit on a board of a group called Curious Minds Dive Foundation.
mm,
And what they are is a bunch of teachers who are divers, um, in down by the Key West. And actually just recently had a scuba camp. I couldn't go because my kids were too young, and there's laws against kids diving that young.
uh-huh.
And one of the reasons they do that is because and this is like more of my marine biology at that point, and the ecosystem, and we talk about sustainability and all the other stuff that impacts the environment, and maybe this is something of interest to you too, is that in order to experience, in order to learn, sometimes you have to have hands-on experience. So one of the things I've been talking to them about is creating and starting a STEM program on
Mm,
marine sciences with an organization called iCare in Amarada, if an hour away from Key West. And the reason for that is because the coral reefs are dying, because of the high acid content and global warming, all the other stuff goes along with that.
mhm,
So the group is really looking at it from the point of how do we replant the coral reef? How do we do that in order for the marine life to thrive again? How does that impact global climate change that's happening around the world? And I think it's important for kids, especially different kids and diverse kids, to go into it, regardless if it's biology or chemistry or physics or biotechnology. There's so many very variety of different sciences out there,
mm,
and now there's space. I'm working on a space program as well. How does that impact the kids in the next generation coming on board, and looking at what kind of new sciences will come from that is going to be so important.
uh-huh.
So I'd be curious, like what you're going to be learning down the line after biology is like, is that going to deviate from biology in some sense that you're going to do organic chemistry and physics mixed in with biology, and how that impacts your thoughts on that later down the line?
Yeah, because I took physics like freshman year and
Okay.
then I took chemistry last year and I liked chemistry. And then we had a like organic
Ooh,
chemistry, I guess. It's like
yeah.
kind
Ooh, I hated that.
of
I hated organic chem.
yeah. Um, so yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'll like biochemistry or something like that. I don't know.
That'll be interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. No, I think our school has a marine biology
Hmm.
class, and actually, if we take that class, we get to actually like, scuba dive and get like a certificate.
You
Like,
should.
yeah, so maybe if I'm really interested, I might take that like senior year or something. Fun.
Well, it would be fun. I've learned a lot actually sitting on the board with the crowd, and they've been. I can't swim for my life, so they've been trying to get me to go diving. And my
Oh,
comment is, if I can't swim, I can't go diving. But they're saying like, oh, you can dive. You don't need to learn how to swim. But I
mm,
think my daughters want to go diving, and my husband's a little more fearful of it. But I think it's interesting because one of the things I did learn from all this is that astronauts use underwater diving as
mm,
a tool for walking in space or practicing. I think it's 1 hour. of spacewalking is equivalent to 6 hours of diving. If I remember the math properly, I have to look at. Don't hold me to that. But I but it's very interesting the correlation of space and water and how that impacts science.
Mhm,
So, but no, I find it very fascinating, and in fact, this is why disinformation. Going back to disinformation and misinformation, is that the mind of a scientist is very different from a mind of a person, a politician, who don't
mhm,
dwell on facts. Right? They're just going to read the news, and to me, it's just rumor. If you read the news, depending on their stance, facts change. And
mhm,
as scientists are, here's the facts, here it is, here's proof of it. Let me show you how it works. So
mhm,
it's like two different mindset, and I appreciate that um, at times. But then there's the other side where I appreciate, understanding human nature, and how that impacts the news that's being delivered to others. So
mhm,
it's it's a very interesting concept, very very interesting concept. I just don't like it as a tool when people use it as a tool to their own advantages.
mhm. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. What do you think like the worst like type of misinformation would be?
False information. I don't know how much you've looked on the internet, but there are people who use it as revenge. I don't know if you know about that. You heard about revenge porn? Do you know what
Uh,
that is? Yeah, it's so I get involved with a lot of different groups, and one of the things that I do know is that what revenge porn is basically a person, if when you're intimate, and maybe I don't, this is not a conversation since you're in high school. What they do is they post inappropriate pictures of you as an individual online as revenge because you did something or you broke up with them. So there's
uh-huh.
quite a bit of that. So to me, that is more damaging to an individual mindset because your trust is now broken with this individual. So that to me is the most intimate.
Mhm,
Um, the political stuff in terms of misinformation is quite a bit. People have gotten killed because of that too. And there's no proof of me making a statement, so don't hold me to that. But I would appreciate someone doing some research around that, because I have heard people who have couldn't live up to the shame. Like, in Chinese, there's the 面子问题, right?
mhm,
Where, you put that kind of shame up, they're going to go and kill themselves, commit
mhm,
suicide. So I think there's quite a bit that can be done with misinformation if people are nefarious enough to use it. And
mhm.
there's quite a bit of people doing that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I've never heard that like response, but that's for sure very like true. I get that.
Yeah. It's a
Mhm,
lot of those actually. If you're doing a lot of research, you should take a look at that. And especially in children in high schools, right? You hear about kids taking inappropriate pictures, sending their quote unquote to the significant others, and it gets spread rampant around school.
mhm,
That's similar to misinformation in a sense too. Although it is considered legal in child porn, but it's if you think about it, what's the impact on that? Because you're now spreading lies about an individual because
yeah,
of pictures like that, and that's what misinformation, disinformation could be,
mhm,
right? So there's quite a few incidents out there of that already.
uh-huh. Yes. So what do you think would be like the best like eliminate or like avoid or reduce misinformation?
But that's a tough one. Um, I think it's a combination of a lot of things. It's not just the law, stricter penalization against people who have committed crimes like this.
Mhm,
Um, but it's impossible if you look at it from a global stance, right? You have to think of it from the perspective of how do you protect yourself. So I always tell people to individually protect yourself as much as you can. Don't put yourself out there too much. There's a reason for that. Because the minute you put things on the internet, you can't get rid of it.
mhm,
And that's a fact. You can never get rid of it. Someone else owns that. So it's such a hard question
mhm,
to ask. Is really there's no control right now, and this is why there's so much misinformation and disinformation globally out there. I mean, if you look at the Eastern European war that's going on, which I'm sure
mhm,
the news that are being shared overseas with the sympathetic states or the sympathetic countries
mhm,
are going to be different from the ones that are against that. So I think this is one of the reasons why it's important to just look at facts.
mhm.
It's going to be very hard to fight that.
Yeah, for sure.
The
Mm,
question I would ask is, how do you protect yourself from and figure out how to discern information, fact from fiction,
mm,
right?
yeah.
And I see that you have 9 minutes counting. So, FYI.
Yeah.
Do
Um, uh,
you have any questions? I mean, it seems like you're very curious about this. So do you have any questions about this?
um,
Is this what you want to do down the line, to really push a paper, do research on this?
um, maybe. I mean, like, that wasn't, I didn't think about that, like, initially, but now that I've, like, talked with so many people, I feel like it could, like, be a possibility
Mhm.
that, yeah, but, mhm. Mm, I mean, I don't know, maybe I'll, like, in college, I'll do, like, biomedical, like, informatics or something, like, I don't know, just,
Well, if you're looking at it from the perspective is how the other thing that you may want to look at is how many scientists actually falsify their data. The
mm,
hypotheses is quite a bit actually.
mhm,
The anti-vaccination movement is one where I don't know if you looked that up. That's something you can take a look at. And there's a lot of disinformation because of that movement.
yeah,
That's a very interesting one that's related to biology and sciences. I think there's another recent research that was done by a scientist that was actually reneged by their peers because they found out that he falsified data,
mhm,
which is quite interesting, fascinating to read as to why they would do that and how they fake the data.
yeah,
The other one you could probably look at is COVID. I mean, this whole anti-China thing
mhm,
with the COVID vaccine and Trumpians calling it China vaccine or the China virus is a very interesting bit of, disinformation, which I
mhm,
think is well worth taking a look at, right? And then when WHO sent a group of scientists overseas to do investigations about that, what the outcome was.
mhm,
Um, it's a very fascinating topic. Um, there's a world that you have open for you to actually look into this and do significant research on, but
mhm,
it's a lot for yourself.
mhm, yeah. I mean,
So
I'm like enjoying this though, like kind of. So
I'm
it's
glad. Yeah, I'm glad to hear that. So
yeah.
I don't know, do you have any questions or
Uh, I do have some questions, but I think we covered most of
okay.
let's see. Yeah. So yeah, I think that's pretty much all the questions that I had prepared. Um,
Great. Do you have anything you want to add or
uh, just like for fun, do you have like a role model or something?
oh my God. I'll be very honest. I didn't have a role model growing up because I came
Mhm,
from a family who was not privileged. We were poor. And a lot of this was because of my hunger to learn as much as I did. So I would say a lot of my role models are from library books. I read a lot. I love reading.
mhm,
And I think for me was because I didn't have a role model and also because I'm an Asian woman, Asian descent, um, and a woman. I wanted to ensure that my daughters down the line would have someone to look up to to say, all right, I can do this. If my mother can do it and be a wife and be a mother and do everything else and own a business, I can do this as well. So to all those who feel hopeless, I would say never give up because there were times that it was not an easy journey. So the
yeah.
role model portion of it is a very hard. I think my role model will be my husband. He was there behind me every step of the way.
Mhm. That's really sweet. And that's really good advice too. Do you have like any other advice?
Me, I think for the youngsters, like, kids your age, I have to say this. Thank you very much for actually doing this. Don't give up. You're going to go through a lot of trials and tribulation. And I know that for a fact because I've been there. But
Mm-hmm.
hold your head up high when you go through. An F is not going to take your life away. And I'm serious about that.
Mm-hmm.
As long as you're willing to learn and as long as you're willing to grow, everybody will be okay. You're
Yeah.
doing 100% right. So I think for kids out there, that's really important to hear.
Mm-hmm. For sure, for sure.
Yeah. But thank you, Annie. Uh, I don't know if you have anything else, because I also know we're coming down to the minutes, so I want to make sure you have enough time.
Yeah. Um, I think that's all I have.
Oh, cool. Awesome. I hope I answered your questions, Annie.
Sure, for sure. That was really fun because I don't know, usually my interviews are more like question answer, like kind of
Mhm.
that, but that felt more like a conversation. So that was really fun.
I'm glad. No, I work with a lot of kids, and I think conversations get you to open up a little more. And I feel like I've learned a lot about you too, which is great.
Uh-huh.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
No, of course, anytime. And feel free to email me if you have any questions or you need people. Um,
Uh-huh.
I do work with quite a bit of people, so I do have enough contacts to refer you to, and then you can talk to them too. Of
Yeah, thank you.
course. All right.
Mm,
Anything else? If not, you have my email. You know how to reach me. Feel free
mhm.
to reach out anytime.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Thank you so much.
Okay. No, of course. All right. I'll talk to you later. Bye.